Hello friends, my name is Michelle Fondin and I'm the author of Help! I Think My Loved One is an Alcoholic, a survival guide for lovers, family, and friends. Welcome! Today we're going to talk about early sobriety, what to expect when your alcoholic is getting sober in early sobriety. So early sobriety is really a time of big transition. It's a time when you, who loves an alcoholic, may have hoped for years and years, and now the time has finally come. Perhaps your loved one has checked into detox or rehab or has started daily AA meetings, but he has made the decision to get sober and stay sober. Now let me tell you the first thing. The first thing is, don't bring your expectations too high in this period of early sobriety. Let me tell you why. I made this mistake about a year ago when my alcoholic said that he was going to get sober. And he checked into detox and I thought, okay, it's a done deal. This is something I've been waiting for a really long time. I was super excited. I thought, okay, now we can begin life together in a more sober and realistic light than having this dysfunctional relationship. However, what soon happened was coming out of detox, and I believe to this day that he actually checked himself out early. Coming out of detox, he made the decision to go back to drinking. He was attending AA meetings, saying he was sober, but I knew deep within my heart that he wasn't committed to it. He thought about the idea of sobriety, but he wasn't fully in. As a therapist told us, it seemed like he had one foot in sobriety and one foot in the drinking. And that just simply does not work. When we spoke to a nurse at the detox program, baffled by this, and she said, you know, oftentimes with an alcoholic or someone who has been rooted in alcoholism for many decades, we have to see these patients come in 2 to 3 times in detox before they're actually serious about getting sober. Think about yourself as going on a diet, for example, and you really want to lose 20 to 30 pounds. You start a diet program, you get so excited about it, then a week down the road, you decide that you'd like to abandon it and go back to eating full time. So for an alcoholic, it's really no different. But remember, this is a physical disease. There is physical and chemical dependency, but it's also a mental and emotional disease. And so when you take away that physical component, when you take away the chemical dependency through detox or rehab, remember that the emotional and psychological aspect of the disease is still present, not to mention the lack of spirituality that has kept your alcoholic rooted in this never-ending problem, in this obsession with alcohol. So it's really a more complicated problem than you might even understand yourself, or you can even wrap your mind around. I know I certainly was there and still am sometimes. So in early sobriety, you might see a few things happen. You might see that your alcoholic will be attending a couple of AA meetings a day, and this is really a good thing. He will find fellowship and camaraderie and friendship in the groups, in the rooms as they call it, and he will be devoted to attending these meetings. Now, even if he isn't, it's really not up to you to push it or force it to happen. You can certainly make it a condition for living conditions. For example, if your alcoholic has moved back in the home or moved back in with you and you're giving him shelter, you can certainly make it a condition that, you can live here as long as you're fully attending meetings, and that's okay. It's actually okay to set those boundaries, set those conditions, because you're offering up your home to your alcoholic loved one. No, again, this doesn't have to be a spouse. It could be a sister, a brother, a parent, or a best friend. So thinking about this, that it is your alcoholic's sobriety, it is your alcoholic's recovery program, but if there are parameters within this relationship, such as sharing a home, or if you have small children together, you can certainly make attending meetings a condition to, for example, continue to have visitation rights with the children. And you can try to verify that to the best of your ability. So an alcoholic in early sobriety will be attending meetings. If he's coming out of a rehab program or a detox facility, you can expect that they're going to tell your alcoholic loved one, look, you need to be attending meetings. They also need to be working the 12 steps. The 12 steps are really important in order to take away that mental obsession. So the 12 steps are going to help them work through that mental and psychological aspect of the disease. They need to change their mindset. They need to change their attitudes. And the only way they can really do this is through fellowship with other alcoholics who are in recovery and by working the 12 steps. It's so important that they immerse themselves in this aspect. And you'll see that. You'll see them reading the big book. There's a 12-step and 12 tradition book. There are a couple other pieces of literature that are part of the AA philosophy that will be also present in your home or at your parents' home if one of your parents is getting sober. The other thing that you need to look for in early sobriety is your alcoholic loved one getting a sponsor? A sponsor is someone in the program, in the AA program, who is a mentor for your alcoholic loved one. This sponsor has had more experience in the program than your loved one and therefore will mentor him or her. Look out for daily calls with the sponsor, once a week meetings with the sponsor, and the sponsor is always same gender. So Alcoholics Anonymous really encourages same gender sponsors because the issues that women deal with, the issues that men deal with in recovery and in alcoholism are vastly different. Men often have issues of pride, ego, and they have a hard time admitting that they have a problem, which is just part and parcel of being a man. For women, it's always guilt and shame and maybe not being a good mother, not being a good partner, not being someone who is good at work, or oftentimes women in alcoholism will hide the alcoholism even more because they're very shameful of falling prey to this disease, even though it really is a disease. So the issues are often very different for men and women, and so they really try to encourage even same gender meetings. So you will often see all women meetings or all men meetings, and even if there are co-ed meetings, throughout the week, each location will have single gender meetings. And those are really good too. Like I said, oftentimes they address issues and problems that are unique to that gender. So you're going to see your loved one going to meetings, reading the literature and studying the literature, meeting with his or her sponsor. And you're also going to see a lot of signs and symptoms that you probably weren't expecting. So remember, alcoholism is a physical disease. So one of the things is that it really wreaks havoc on the body and on the mind. The brain is deeply, deeply affected by alcoholism. And so you might notice that your loved one is in a little bit of a brain fog. And you might think like, oh my gosh, I thought that only happened when they started drinking. And so you know that oftentimes when your loved one started drinking and was drunk, there was a lot of forgetfulness, there were blackouts, there were this sort of mental instability that was happening. And a lot of times they were having conversations with you and it didn't make any sense at all. In early sobriety, the brain is taking time to rebuild itself and to get healthy again. And so your alcoholic who's not used to functioning without alcohol will have this sort of brain fog around them. And so a lot of times it'll appear that they really don't make sense. And it'll seem like they're a little bit fuzzy. And a lot of times conversations won't be very cohesive, or they will still forget stuff. You have to remember their brain has been severely damaged by the alcohol, and it has not only attacked the limbic area of the brain, but it's also attacked the prefrontal cortex, which helps with judgment, discernment, making good choices, and therefore that prefrontal cortex needs to heal in order for them to start making those good choices again, having better judgment, and having conversations that are going to seem a little more cohesive. They're also going to seem a little bit lost, even though they're dedicated now to the program, or at least going through the motions in the beginning. And that's one thing that you need to keep in mind, that in the beginning, they really will seem to just be going through the motions. It's very hard mentally for the alcoholic to wrap himself around the idea of not drinking anymore. It's really hard for them to wrap their head around the idea of attending these meetings, admitting defeat. It may seem like a weakness for them, and it's going to be super hard for them. And so in the beginning, it may just seem like they're going through the motions. It does take time to sink in. And believe me, the power in the meetings will change and transform them. The power of gaining insight into a more spiritual life, giving themselves up to a higher power, which is always talked about in meetings. And it's integrated and infiltrated through the 12 steps. By the power of just doing the program and not being fully committed to it at a heart level, it will start to open up their heart and mind. And that is really the beauty of why this program has worked for nearly 100 years. So you'll see them going through the motions and perhaps, enthusiastically attending meetings. It just depends. It depends on who your alcoholic loved one is, what kind of personal transformation happened to get them to those meetings. Sometimes the meetings in the program is court ordered, and your alcoholic loved one may be going in just to get the court papers signed. But believe me, if they attend meetings long enough, even if court ordered, the power of the program will transform them. It just has to happen. It's something magical that happens. I can't even begin to explain it, but it really is something spiritual that begins to happen. Now, lastly, the one thing you really need to look out for in early sobriety are relapses in behavior. They might also have relapses back to alcohol, and that's okay. If they recognize it straight off the bat, let's say they take a drink, it's okay. Don't blow things out of proportion. If they confess to you that they've messed up and that they'd like to start fresh, one thing you can do to support them is just non-judgmentally say to them, I understand this is hard for you. I understand that this is a huge transition. Maybe you could just call your sponsor, or maybe you could just attend a meeting tonight. And so just offering them that little bit of a solution, but non-judgmentally, and just saying to them, it's okay, I understand that this is super hard for you. Because if they do confess it to you, then that means that they're fully aware that it was a slip up, it was a mess up, and they're ready to make it right. They're ready to make things right. So by you admonishing them or chastising them or judging them, it's not going to help the situation. It's going to actually make it worse. So you could go into this with, you know what? I know these things happen. Continue on. You've been doing a great job. Just those little words of encouragement are really super helpful. But if they relapse mentally, meaning they're not drinking, but you notice behaviors that happened when they were drunk, it's okay. Again, it's a brain disease. It's a mental disease. It's a psychological disease. And so you will notice these little mental slip-ups that actually do happen. And that's okay. I mean, it's going to feel really weird. You're going to be like, I know you're not drunk. I know you're not drinking, but why are you acting like such a jerk? It's because their mind is so befuddled. Again, it's super hard. They were used to dealing with anxiety, frustration, happiness, sadness, anger, every single human emotion. They were used to dealing with it with alcohol. Alcohol was the one solution for every single possible emotion. Now, take away the alcohol, take away the drugs, and they're left dealing with human emotion. They're not used to dealing with human emotion. They need to come to terms with life on life's terms, and that's actually an AA slogan. It's learning how to deal with life on life's terms. And that's a new concept to your alcoholic loved one. And so think of them as sort of like a baby learning how to walk for the first time. It's something so new to them that they're really not knowing how to deal with it. And so when they have an emotion, when they have a life event, something that happens, they really may revert back to old mental behavior that may very much seem like a toddler kicking and screaming and throwing a temper tantrum, and you have no idea what is happening. But that's exactly what's happening, is that they're learning how to deal with life on life's terms, and they just don't have the tools yet to be able to deal with it. And also you've got to remember that those mental and physical cravings are still going to be present for quite a while. I've spoken with alcoholics who say even 2 years into sobriety, even 3 years into sobriety, or 4 years into sobriety, many alcoholics still think about drinking every single day, that craving, that mental craving is still there. Now, because they're dedicated to a program and because they believe in their higher power and they ask their higher power for help to curb this desire, they're able to get through that day and the next without taking a drink. But the mental obsession is often still there. So wishing you many, many blessings, my friends. Enjoy this time of early sobriety. Hope for it. Dream about it. It's going to happen. Your loved one is going to get better and be able to live a normal life. You're going to have a relationship once again. This is an exciting time. I wish you peace and blessings, and please support my work. If you love these videos, I'm going to continue to do these videos very regularly. Please go to Amazon and buy a book, Help, I Think My Loved One is an Alcoholic, a survival guide for lovers, family, and friends. It's available in paperback, Kindle, and audio. If you have friends that are in need of this information, please pass this on. Thank you so much, and God bless.